I gotta figure that stuff out. Okay. What have you guys thought about what we've been learning this week?
No.
The sexual harassment stuff and all that?
No, not.
Anybody have any personal experiences?
I just thought it was pretty interesting that we were studying this with everything going on like nationally right now. There's a lot of conversation about sexual harassment.
Yeah, there is a lot, and it's been going on for a long period of time. I'm a little surprised people haven't come forward before now.
Yeah, I think it just shows you how difficult it is if you don't feel like somebody has so much power to really come forward, because you don't want to damage your future career or prospects. And
especially those young actresses right now. He was the one that made it so they were working. So that would be a hard spot.
Yeah, and he had influence with so many people too. Then yeah.
And they probably didn't realize that it was happening with other people. Like, if they felt like they were going to get the support, they may have come forward sooner.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we're supposed to do is come up with understand some of the background on sexual harassment law. Does anybody have anything specific that they learned this week?
And I realized that the Title, it's 7, right? Title 7 Act was in place in 1964 until they actually set a precedent about sexual harassment being a part of that was 22 years. It took 22 years for them to set a precedent sexual harassment to be a part of the Title 7 Act.
Why do you think it took so long? That seems like a no-brainer to me.
Because women are never listened to in the work. Well, at that time, women were not listened to in the workplace. It was accepted behavior.
Yeah.
And I think now we see a lot more of the, women harassing men and the same-sex harassment too, than that we wouldn't have seen. At least it wouldn't have been public that long ago. But yeah, it took a long time.
It did. So, what's a good definition for sexual harassment? Anybody?
I liked, and I don't have it in front of me, but I liked what it said about where it was unwanted or, advancements that were, what they call it, intimidating, or
hostile or offensive. Yeah.
Hostile or offensive. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that some of the states are going to the, instead of offensive to any one person, to any other woman, because I do think there's probably a standard there that's different between the sexes.
Yeah. What? Maybe just jumping the gun a little bit, but there's all for it because of the way she dressed, or the way she walked, the way she talked, or whatever.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting along those lines that it said somewhere that let me find it because it was interesting how it said. Sexually provocative speech or dress is relevant whether the advances are whether the advances were welcome. So if you do walk and talk and dress like you want that kind of attention, and then you get that attention, it is relevant to the case.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting too. It's interesting because there's so many people that say I should be able to dress how I want and it shouldn't matter. Do you ever see those comments?
Sure.
And then by law, it is relevant.
Yeah. It's such a gray line though, because what one person deems as sexy or or provocative, somebody else is not going to think it is at all. So it's a very gray line, and I think it would be really hard to prove in court that somebody was asking for it. But the fact that it's relevant, I think, is a good thing. It's just, it would be hard to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
think it would depend on what type of harassment we're discussing. You know,
Mhm.
are we, are we going to the extreme of the case study with the boss who put his hand on actually physically touched his subordinate, or are we talking about, just a comment that you might not appreciate,
Yeah.
And also the time frame that you're talking about as well. If it was a one-time incident, it talks about in the paper as well, being relevant.
Right.
So in that story we did read, I got to look at his name. It's DeCondi Jack, whatever. And that Martinez lady, her story.
Mhm.
That is an interesting situation because do you think that she's been sexually harassed? I mean, based on her perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
And I actually think that the fact that he touched her escalated it, but not touching her makes it that much more sinister in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, it's a mind game at that point, and that's almost worse than just being really inappropriate in the way you touch somebody. But yeah, I think it's absolutely harassment.
And tell them about it when it's like the touching. Yeah. So would you consider the harassment that she was receiving that quid pro quo, or was it just a hostile work environment?
I thought it was hostile work environment, at least from the information that we have. You might be able to imply a little bit of quid pro quo because she does say she's scared of being fired, but I don't think we know that at this point. So at this point, I would call it hostile work environment.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm reading the case where it talks about that. But I don't see anything that would lead to quid pro quo.
So also in the reading from the sexual note on the sexual harassment, where you read about the law, what do you think of do you think DaCosta was given good information about how he was supposed to handle the situation?
I don't. I think that he was, it was too vague. He needed direct steps to take.
Yeah, like a lifeline, like somebody he knew he could call. It didn't, it's kind of easier, more comfortable if you know directly who to call instead of just calling some a help phone number you found on the internet or something.
So oh, go ahead.
Was he, and I was a little unclear, was it he was supposed to talk to his company's EEO officer, or was it the federal EEOC? I don't remember.
I thought it was the federal EEOC that he was sent
'cause I
to.
think that's a big jump to take. And I think if the company could still escape some liability if they took some internal action to rectify the situation. But to go straight to the EEOC in his position, I don't know that that's the best advice.
Well, and I think it's such a sensitive topic and such a sensitive situation, especially since it's not him reporting harassment for himself. He's a third party in it. And the person that he talks to, it even says that he heard exasperation in her tone. Like, it needs to be handled so much better than that. and not knowing if the EEOC was something that had to be done, or was it a requirement, or did he just have to let her know? All of those things, it seems like a really messy way to deal with something that is a big issue.
Especially for such a large company. You would think they would have, you know, human resource people that were a little more resourceful.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would have personal liability in the company if he didn't go directly to and do what he was told by that attorney?
I didn't know about that. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Just tell me to shut up. I'm a chatterbox. I didn't know about that, but I did think about it. I wondered if he had liability at what point he was liable. Just overhearing the conversation, was he then liable if he did or did not say anything? Or was he only liable if he didn't do anything about it after getting the information from the whatever the lady was?
Yeah.
I don't know when his liability happens, and I wasn't really reading through the other information. I couldn't really tell either.
Well, and I thought he was more peripheral with Ron Friend, the perpetrator. I didn't think he was a supervisor. So I don't.
He's not,
yeah, he's not
underneath. He's
directly, yeah, in that chain of command. So no, I don't think he's liable personally. But you know, clearly at this point now that he knows, and if he doesn't try to take steps, then I think maybe.
Well,
you
go
can
ahead.
go.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I would say morally yes, but like legally, it's kind of hard to say. He definitely is very concerned. So.
One of the things I would have been concerned about, and I think he was too, is because the Miss Martinez, can't remember her name, she said, "Oh, don't say anything, don't say anything." You know what I mean? Like, you know, if anything were to happen and he hadn't said anything, would that protect him at all, or is he still on the hook?
I think eventually there would be an investigation, and I think it depends on if he would, you know, confess or you know decide to become a witness. So, but I don't know how much trouble you could get in, but I don't know. I think it'd be best to go up the chain of command.
Even if the person said don't say anything. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Even if the person you're trying to protect that says don't say anything, does that?
No, because doesn't it say something about she has to take reasonable steps, reasonable action to avail herself of, protection to the company? Like, especially if you go through not your state court, but through the federal court, you need to have, be able to show that you tried to report the situation and tried to get help. So let me see.
Yeah, I think it said that a company's defense could be an employee unreasonably failing to take advantage of any preventative or corrective opportunities provided by the employer. So as long as there was a way for her to report the problem or to do something about it, and she doesn't, then they're covered. Way for her to do it.
So as I'm reading through you, Tammy, I think you're the one that said, it was Shelley that you said, is it the company's EEO or the federal EEOC? And the discussion leader thing clarifies it is actually the company EEO that he was sent to, not the federal EEOC.
Yeah, well, then that's not the worst advice, although I agree with Tammy that it wasn't. I mean, whoever he spoke to could have been much more helpful, and instead of going all, lawyer on him, trying to help rectify the situation.
Or even being perturbed by his lack of knowledge. Like, she seemed to be very upset that he didn't know what to do, and that he wasn't comfortable saying any names. And I would be like, yeah, of course you're not. Like, that makes sense to me that you wouldn't want to. But Yeah, it's
Right.
odd to me that it was handled that way internally.
Why would he not have thought to go to that person, the EEO office anyway, do you think? Why would he have gone directly to a corporate lawyer?
Well, my husband's an engineer, so he may have just had better connections with them. He may have
Oh, okay.
done a lot of contract work, and he's working with the a lawyer's office. I thought that was probably, if he did a lot of writing of contracts and things like that, he might have worked a lot with their company lawyers.
I was just wondering, because if you have that, you would think that would be where you would go first.
Right.
Yeah, it actually says in the thing that he had dealt with people at the general counsel's office before over contracting issues,
Mhm.
and that he thought that they might know what the policy was for a situation like that. So it sounds like like Shelley said, he just had a contact there that he already felt comfortable talking to.
Well, I had thought the same. One of the things I came up with when I was thinking about that was that he wasn't ready to go full blown into this. He really just wanted legal advice. He really didn't know if he wanted to or if he should. If once you report it to the company's EEO office, you're in it all the way. So, how would you evaluate Jack DaCosta's option at this point?
I don't think he has much options now that he knows about it. He has to report it to somebody, and I think doing it internally is the right thing to do for him, for the company and himself. And then if they weren't to take action, then you might want to encourage Julia to report it to either state or federal. But yeah, I think he has to report it to somebody, and I would think the EEO would be the right person.
Do you think at this point it's even an option to just handle it one-on-one with the perpetrator, or do you think it just has to be reported at this point?
It's excessive. It's not like you just overheard him making a comment about her skirt and just say, hey, we need to keep this above board, This is excessive.
Yeah.
I thought that too.
Yeah.
And then when I was reading, I saw that it said that this paper is so big. There's so many pages.
I know.
It said
Yeah,
that they could talk to the person first.
Julia?
That.
With the
I-
EEO?
Did you see it, Benjamin? Sorry. Oh, it said courts have approved a variety of remedial steps. In many circuits, courts have found oral admonishment, written reprimands, and the initiation of an investigation to be sufficient so long as the coercive action was not succeeded by further incidents. So it sounded to me like if somebody just went to him and said, "Hey, we know what's happening.
Knock it
You
off.
have to stop."
Yeah.
That oral admonishment counted in their
Kind of a threat.
Would it count if you
Or
were his
warning.
supervisor, though?
I don't know.
I think it should go to his supervisor.
Probably.
I think it's one of the things you have to think about is whether or not he has enough influence over this particular individual. Like you said, if it's not a supervisor, he probably doesn't have enough, influence to make any change.
Yeah, it's chain of command.
Yeah. So by vote, how many of us would actually go and turn him in? I know. Would you?
I mean,
Shelley,
I-
I would too.
You know what? It's such a touchy thing though, because she has said, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything." And I feel like he did the right thing by talking to her first too. I felt like that was such a good idea to say, hey, I know what's going on and this is what I need to do. And then to tell her I won't do anything without talking to you first, I think it was brilliant, because now he can go to her and say, look, this is what I'm doing. You better prepare. So yeah, he needs to turn him in.
I agree, but I think it's a same type of situation as abuse. Sometimes people who are abused are afraid of the repercussions and can't see their own way out. So you kind of have to take action if you see there's a problem.
Yeah, this gets into all those kind of weird topics. Somebody might have been raised in a culture where that's acceptable, or raised in a family where, they think that's acceptable.
So the three ladies say they would turn him in. What about you, Ben?
Oh, I raised my hand. Did y'all see me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stop, Ben.
Oh, y'all are like, oh no.
I have to talk to you, Benjamin.
So how would you explain to Julia that you were going to turn it in?
How would I?
I don't know. That's hard. I don't know.
I think I would have to discuss it with her and try to get her to do it herself. And if she wasn't going to, then you kind of tell her that, you're obligated and responsible and you have to. So are you going to do it or am I going to do it? So.
Well, and I feel like it's also a consequence of her talking about it in the office. If she wasn't going to do anything about it and didn't want anybody to know, then she shouldn't have said anything to anybody anywhere other than in her private home. And that sounds like victim blaming, and I hate that, but she took that risk when she talked about it in the office, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think I would try to start it easy, just saying we're just going to start an investigation, maybe start journaling what happens to kind of help her maybe see that she can empower herself a little bit. And, try to not to be like, oh, we're going to go public and everybody's going to know, try to avoid that kind of conversation, but just try to ease her into the idea that we're going to start building a case, and so that this doesn't happen anymore. Because, her goal is to get transferred out. Well, somebody else is going to get hired in her position. And the same thing's going to happen to that person. So you can't have that kind of culture in your workplace.
I agree. It's hard sometimes when you have to tell somebody that you're gonna, reveal the situation. But I think it is appropriate to go to her and let her know before, so she can prepare herself. Does anything prevent her boss from firing her for some other reason? Is there any protections in place?
Gosh.
As long as it's unreported, no. I don't think, as long as they're not in the process of building this case, then I think he could probably find some reason to let her go. But once that process is started, then it becomes a whole lot more clear that there's more to this story.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I'm just making sure we covered what. Let's see. Okay. So it says, so if we think that DaCosta should report to the EEO office, we need to specifically, what would you specifically report? Because all you heard was one side of a conversation. What kind of thing do you think we should report?
That I heard one side of a conversation. That's it.
And then, that's true. And essentially that it was, from what you understand, that it's an ongoing situation and that there has been physical contact, whatever, but that you heard one side of a conversation.
Oh, also,
Well,
I wanted to ask too. I only saw in the thing that she said it's her boss, but she never mentioned the guy's name. And I don't know if that was to imply that she had maybe it was his boss or maybe it was somebody else, and we're assuming that it was that guy. I don't know.
I wondered
But
that too.
Did you? Okay. Because I thought maybe that's why one of the questions we had to answer was about that.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember now what it was. But
Yeah.
I missed it
maybe
too.
that's why we need to think about this, because we don't know who she's talking
He
about.
never mentions the name.
when he has
And
that
yeah, we'd be
conversation with her,
assuming.
though,
Yeah, the beginning
He
leads
has
you
a
to think it's
conversation, but he
Ronnie.
never says his name either.
He doesn't.
Motions, remember?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yep.
He's embarrassed, so he just goes, the guy, and he
Yeah.
never says his name either.
yeah. Well,
I bet you it's a trick.
It is.
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, that could be, because I actually thought the same thing, because she never says the name, and then all of a sudden he's got it figured out and he starts mentioning by name. So I thought the same thing. I thought this might get us into a situation where we're
Which
accusing the wrong person.
Yeah, and maybe that needs to be very clear if he does go to the EEOC. EEOC? Yeah. If he does go to them, he needs to be very clear. I don't know who this is about, but this is the conversation that I heard.
Huh. I like that.
So,
because we may be accidentally accusing the wrong person.
That's definitely something important to know.
Yeah.
But to backtrack a second, I think we one of the questions we were asked was like what could be filed, and I never even realized this until I was reading it now, talking with y'all. In the harassment by supervisor section, it says what kind of case that she could make or it could be made. It's I don't know if it's French. It's like Ellerth Farragher affirmative defense case.
yeah, I
Where-
saw that too.
Yeah, where it says it enables an employer to avoid liability by proving
Yeah.
first that's
that's why I
exercise
think
reasonable
yes.
care to prevent and promptly correct the sexual harassment. So that could happen, but in the second, if that doesn't happen, that the employer unreasonably failed to take advantage of the preventative or corrective opportunities provided by the employer. So you can still make a case either
Right.
way.
yeah. I think he has to. I mean, if he doesn't do something, though, then the company could be liable.
I'll be back in 5 minutes, guys.
Okay. All right. There's a couple more parts we need to cover. Anyways, is what kind of things would we include if we were to create a company's sexual harassment policy? What kind of things would we include?
Well, I think we have to build it on the law.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So we're gonna follow what's the legal. Sorry, I'm trying to pull that up actually. So we need to.
So it says so what would we do for the potential victim of harassment? What would we do for the accused harasser? How would we handle it from what would be the policy for a bystander and legal counsel? Those are the 4 different roles that they want us to make sure that we include something in our policy. How would we, so like the accused harasser, I mean, you never know if they're being accused fairly. So we've got to make sure that they're given the benefit of the doubt without giving them opportunity to continue the harassment, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important to outline like what was done wrong or what are the violations, so you can make the case based off what we're actually focusing on and what's happened. I think she was verbally harassed, physically, to an extent, and another one is he even was willing to use power to cover it up. So, I mean, that's kind of a form of intimidation. I don't know how you would word it, but. Did we lose?
Sorry,
Okay.
did it cut out? Sorry.
Yeah, it did.
Sorry. Well, so in a situation like this, if you were creating a policy and this is the situation, the one we read, would you want to put in somewhere where you know, changes in you know, assignment could be made? Like, what could you create in your policy that would protect the victim without victimizing the harasser? You know what I mean?
Well, I think you have to define it first. I'm looking at a template actually right now, and it's from Ohio. But so it says, this one says, what constitutes harassment when submission to conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term of condition of employment. So that's the quid pro quo. Statement that's for hiring, again, that's or such conduct has purpose of or effect of interfering. So we're defining the, that's the hostile work environment. So you need to define it and say that the company is committed to eliminating anything with that. And let's see, and then we should probably, the rest of it says that any employee who believes that he or she is a victim of sexual harassment must immediately report any incident to the company's EEO officer. So there's the responsibility of the victim. And it says the company will not tolerate retaliation against any employee who complains of sexual harassment or provides information in connection with any such complaint.
So that takes care of your bystander too.
Yeah. It doesn't say anything about rights of the accused in this template.
Other than they can't be retaliated against. Oh, the accused. Oh, okay.
The accuser can't be retaliated against.
Yeah. Hurry. So, okay, so to wrap this up, I'm going to tell you what actually happened in the Lone Star case. You ready? It was a real case, even though the company and individuals have been disguised. It says, when Jack called corporate counsel, he forgot about caller ID. The lawyer used the information he gave her to figure out the people he was talking about. She contacted the Lone Star EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez had made up her story to protect herself from pending layoffs. DaCosta was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. Julia Martinez's husband found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit. French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DaCosta for calling corporate counsel. There was so much animosity between DaCosta and French that DaCosta left the company after 3 months. Surprised?
Well, that's not the happy ending that you're hoping for.
I know. Well, and it's sad. It's sad because, you know, Julia was concerned about her husband finding out. And, yeah, that's not what you were hoping would happen. I know.
It does explain some of the victim mentality, though, that she has.
Yeah, it does. And that's why she was worried. So one of our questions is, what was Lone Star's sexual harassment policy? If they had one, did Jack know anything about it?
Doesn't appear to. He doesn't seem like they had any training or anything.
Exactly. It just seems like they didn't have anything in place that he would have been familiar with, or he would have probably followed procedure instead of calling to ask one of the corporate lawyers. So what could have been, what policies, procedures, or training might have improved this situation that Jack found himself in?
Well, I think they should have had some training,
Yeah.
like company-wide. This is the policy. These are the steps to take. You know, it's the fact that the jerk got off scot-free basically is a bit, you know, but that's because there was no case. You know, it was just all hearsay, and Julia
Yeah.
didn't want to cooperate. So.
Which now you can kind of see where her mentality came from.
Yeah. Maybe if the company had its own like anonymous reporting or anonymous, like, you know, their violation kind of report, it's like she could have done it without, you know, anybody knowing it was really her, and he could have been addressed.
But
And
how,
maybe it would have shut it down, you know, early on. So
it makes it though, if you don't tell who you are, it makes it really hard to have an investigation, you know?
Yeah. Because it's not like the EEO or somebody in the HR is going to be able to just hang out in the department and pick up evidence, you know.
I know,
But if we had a policy in place, then she would have known too what her rights were.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like she had any idea how to handle the situation any better than DeCoste did. So, and then the, you know, perpetrator, French, he would have known that this was an issue, you know, that people were going to be watching for. Maybe it could have circumvented a lot of this.
So
Just
chances
having a
are,
little bit of training.
yeah, chances are, like we saw in the news this week, it's going to come back around and he's going to do it again. You know, he got away with it last time. Chances are he's going to do it again.
Right.
Are you guys ready to move over to our our doohickey?
Yeah, I think we should.
sure. Yeah.
I thought John would join us by now.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on.
Did you have an outcome to that case? Is that what I heard?
Yep, it was an outcome. I'll tell you really fast. Basically, he forgot that there's caller ID, and so the lawyer he called could identify him and figured out who was involved in the case. They launched an investigation, and essentially, they couldn't really get Julia to cooperate. French denied all the charges, claiming that she'd made it all up to protect herself from pending layoffs. And DeCoste was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. And Julia's husband found out, beat her up, and forced her to quit. And it was so tense and uncomfortable that DeCoste quit within 3 months. So the perpetrator got off scot-free. And they said it's a real case. They just changed the names.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have nicer case studies.
Man. That's awful.
So I haven't been on today to the doohickeys, to the Google Doc that you had set up. But I like that you set it up. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, Tammy. Thank you.
I keep messing with it, and I'm not meaning to step on any toes, so just right back. I'm just trying to make it work for everyone.
If you're technologically advanced, we're going to just go with it.
That's right. Use our team skills.
I'm happy to do what I know how to do, but I do tend to also have to let other people step up. So I would say right now, one of the things that we need to work on, I'm trying to pull it up, sorry. One of the things we really need to work on is the ending part.
Do we need is it like a conclusion, or do we need more material, you think?
Well, so it's big. It's supposed to be big. It says this portion of the paper should include deep reflection and application of the content studied in the class as it informs the problem and solution. This isn't just a single paragraph repeating what you've already said about the problem and the solution. give detailed account that explains why this issue is the highest priority. Include detailed information about how the solution will be implemented. Demonstrate your understanding of the class readings and discussions. That's a lot.
So,
Yeah. So
did you guys read did you guys see the sample one that he sent out?
I looked at it
No.
briefly. I haven't read it over.
It's like a lot of pages, and which is fine. I think we have plenty of material that way. The conclusion in it is 4 small paragraphs, but they have a references page. I didn't know we were referencing everything.
Yeah.
They have a whole page of references, like where they're getting their stuff.
Because we have to just not say what we think should happen as far as the solution. We have to actually back it up and say this is what needs to be done. I don't know. It's a lot.
It's a lot bigger than I realized. When I saw the references, I thought, oh, we're doing a lot more than that.
Yeah, and we have to do opinions. We do this again in 3 more weeks after we've learned this, like on the sexual harassment and on the next 2 lessons. We have to do the whole thing again.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that I was looking at the instructions, and I don't see where we have to have a reference page in the criteria in the rubric, but I think it would be a good thing to do.
What
Give us a little bit more material if we used quotes. So.
And they do in the sample, they do include quotes and like parts of law. Like one of the things they're using is laws enforced by EEOC, which is found at eeoc.gov. So it's legit.
Oh, they're pulling from outside reading
Yeah.
too. Wow.
Yeah, they are.
That's above
That's
and
what I
beyond
mean.
right there.
Yeah, no, everything on here is pulled from outside reading. Everything that they have listed on their references page.
So it's almost like a research paper.
Yeah, so it kind of scared me a little bit because that's not what I was expecting.
No, I didn't.
Well-
I didn't think that was what we were doing either.
So we have to, I think we're doing really well with the problem and solutions. I don't think on diversity of management we can count on John to add anything. So Angela and Shelley, you might be on your own on that one. If
Okay.
you need help, I would say. It looks like you guys are doing a great job on it. You've got plenty of points there.
Shelley
I
covered
think-
everything before I got on.
Well, she did so good too with the with the diversity. No,
I was
Yeah.
just afraid we were all going to come up with the same ideas that I thought, well, I'm going to come up with 4 on my own and then we can pick and choose.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, she said everything.
yeah. Because then when I got on too, I was like, well, Shelley has 4 points. I don't need any, but I did. I had one that I wanted.
Well, that was not
Wanted on
great.
my intention. Was we could pick the ones we liked the best.
You did great. No complaints.
Yeah, no complaints at all. Okay, so let's just go through real quick. Problem 1 was lack of leadership. Again, that was just my idea after looking over the thing. I hope that works out for Angela and Benjamin. You were the other 2 on that one.
Yeah.
I think that we take that those 2, Angela and I both did a part of that opening paragraph, the problem paragraph. We just need to make them coalesce a little better. And then the solutions, I'm really happy with those. I thought Benjamin did a great job on the 2 that he came up with. What do you guys think?
I thought
Just
it was
that on
looking
that.
really good. I think that there's plenty of material to pull from, and the solutions all looked good when I was looking through them.
Okay,
I think
so
our biggest issue is going to be that conclusion.
Okay, so maybe just with the problem 1 then, Angela, do you want to go back through and just edit those first 2 paragraphs to make them sound good together?
I can do that.
Okay, and then so problem number 2, it looks like, who was working on 2? Angela and Shelley, you're going to be probably the only ones on that. And
Okay.
I think it looks great. You guys did a great job.
My
So
only,
I would call that one good.
okay, my only concern with my ideas is I had very similar ideas for hiring practices and
Right.
the manager hiring. And so those points are like the same. So I don't know if they're distinct enough.
I'm going to leave that call up to you and Kelly, or you and
Okay.
Angela.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
When I look at our policies and procedures thing at work, some things are repetitive, and so I don't know that really matters. Other
Okay.
than, if it relates to this and it relates to that, then that's what it needs to be. Just because that's where, when you go to look in your policies and procedures manual, you're going to look under the question you have, even
Right.
if the answer is somewhere else with the same. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I
So,
don't know that.
Shelley, are you okay with it if it stays as it is? Or
Yeah,
do you
I'm
wanna work
fine.
on it some more?
I tried to make it look nice. So.
I think
Yeah.
you did a great job.
And then the third hiring practices is Benjamin, Shelley, and I think Benjamin didn't add anything, but we already had so much. So unless you have something, Benjamin, what do you feel like?
I did a little editing here and there, but
Huh?
yeah, I thought it already looked good. So
Okay, so then we're just down to the most important thing is that they need to focus on the 3 problems that we came up with, and then do that last bit. So how do we feel about handling that?
I didn't think of it then, but I'm gonna say what I'm thinking now. I really think, a lot of this is they brought somebody on board to be HR to be able to solve these things. So getting HR and policies in place is going to be essentially the first step. They've got to have policies in place to deal with any of this stuff.
So would you say hiring practices then is the key issue? Like they need to fix,
I think,
or leadership?
I think it's leadership and starting with policies and procedures. You can't start fixing anything if there's not policies in place in your company.
So we don't have policies and procedures as a solution under lack of leadership. So if we have to pick one of our problems as the key issue to focus on, and then talk about our solutions being the way to fix it, I don't know how to incorporate policies and procedures into that. Does that make sense?
I don't know. If it was me, seriously, I don't know that you can fix anything yet. You know what I'm saying? It's just such a mess. You almost have to, I don't know. That's what I mean. It's kind of, I wonder if this concluding paragraph needs to, I don't know.
I definitely see your point, Angela, but I'm thinking they gave us a direct assignment of hiring how many people in the next few weeks. So I'm thinking hiring has to be our, that's our
list.
I
And
guess,
also sorry, go ahead, Shelley.
oh, well, just saying that because that was a direct assignment. I don't know, from our hiring.
Yeah, and if we choose hiring practices as our key issue, we do have a hiring process and benefits and things like that we could talk about as being important in that aspect of hiring correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it would deal with kind of all 3 things at once a little bit. We could talk about the management hiring. We could talk about the employees not understanding their policies or their benefits. And, if we start with right from the start when we have new hires, we're developing clear understanding and expectations and contracts,
Yeah.
maybe that encompasses.
I like
there's
that.
so many.
So say that.
I think you're,
Shelley, just repeat what you just said.
Well, I was just saying, because if we talk about the hiring policies and developing a clearer hiring strategy, we also can talk about how we need to address that employees don't understand their benefits. The management issue is related to hiring. All of those things we could start by having that policy developed so that we can hire the new people that we need to hire, and then you know, and also address areas of all three concern that we're seeing.
New hires were for holiday, right? For the holiday?
Yeah, well, yeah, they were talking about needing to do some seasonal workers, yeah.
Seasonal. Okay, I'm trying just to on that. Document said that. I think incorporating them all is a good idea. I think we should focus on one of our problems. So I think hiring policies makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. On board?
No, I think so. I think that can be maybe. I mean, it would be good to kind of touch on the other ones, but even developing that one, because you're hiring the people that fit the the job better, and you're also kind of communicating, the benefits and the things that are kind of expected of them. It goes into kind of a lot of things, kind of like the safety. And I was thinking it kind of gets into maybe even replacing some of those bad managers who are kind of feeding this whole catastrophe.
Right.
I do think the hiring policy is going to be your critical thing right now.
The key issue. Okay, so how do we want to handle this last part then? Do we feel like we need to do, because it's not do the references and the outside sources, because it's not, like Benjamin said, it's not on the rubric. For this time, like maybe we just do it the way we've been, like what we thought this was going to be, and see how he grades it, or do we want to try to go overboard and do more what the example showed?
Well, what can we talk about? So we have to have the pros and cons, and we have to this in this conclusion.
Okay, right. So we have to describe the pros and cons and the obstacles why this is the key issue. So why hiring policies, what the pros are of having good hiring policies, what the cons are of having bad ones, obstacles to having good hiring policies, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of outside sources that we could quote. I just don't know if that's where we want to go for this paper, or do we want to wait and see if he gives us more direction for it for the next time? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
When is it due? I'm trying to find where it's submitted.
Monday morning. It's
Monday morning at 7 a.m.
Oh,
No.
Next Monday?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we have the weekend.
We have time still, but
So we want to divide it up and say somebody like, 2 and 2, like, or, so we each have something written in that conclusion.
I wonder if I think we ought to each just go in and add our, contribute, and then have somebody edit it.
Okay.
practices. Okay. Do you think that we need to do outside sources and
I think
quote
only
them?
only if we find some that are, if we can find something that's applicable, fine. But like you said, it's not in the rubric, so it shouldn't be required.
Right. Are you guys okay with that, Benjamin and Shelley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is this conclusion supposed to be? Is it like a 2-page kind of thing, or is it just a page?
I would say a couple paragraphs. It just says this isn't a single paragraph repeating what you've already said. So I would say a couple paragraphs. But yeah,
Right.
I don't think it needs to be like pages long.
I think like what you were saying, that it's essentially, it's not repeating what we've already said, but it's telling why this is the key issue and what is going to be the obstacles, whatever, to get it in place. And that we haven't already said that.
Right. So I just put a little under our key issue at the bottom that we're going to go with hiring practices, talk about develop clear hiring strategies, employee benefits, about the new hires for seasonal orders, safety issues, replacing bad managers. Those are just some of the things that we've just talked about. Do we want to just kind of do this on our own and figure, work through the Google document then?
Well, isn't this a group project where only one person submits it?
Yeah.
So I think we just need to have a leader that we're reporting back to by a certain time. That we've all, what is our deadline to get it in so that the group leader can make sure that it sounds good.
Okay. Well, if you guys want me to, I will. I feel comfortable writing that up. So if you guys can get me your information, I'll put it together and put it up on the Google Docs, and then we can all look at it maybe Saturday evening.
Okay.
Okay, so you're
So what if we get our submissions in by tomorrow night, by Friday evening, and then you
let's do that, yeah.
Thinking like each of us come up with like a paragraph of something that we feel like goes under that key issue of hiring practices, and then Shelley can put it together.
Or even just, I don't know if it has to be a whole paragraph, but if we each come up with some kind of contribution to the points, why it's going to be positive, why it's going to be a negative, why this should be first. I think if we just come up with ideas along that line, and then she can just edit it to make it sound good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can do
Will
that.
that work? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I can do that. As long as Tammy sets up my leadership of the board.
The recording.
Yeah.
The hangout. You gotta do that for me, Tammy.
So bad I didn't put that anybody could edit it for a while. I thought I had, but I didn't do it. Let's see. How do I give you control? Let me look real quick. Shelley, are you not on there at all?
On what?
On the Google Doc? No, you've been on there.
Yeah, I edited it.
What is your email? Is it the KET?
That's one of it. Is that the BYU one or the Google one that I use?
Yeah. I don't see a Google one on here. Maybe that's what I need to do. Let's see. I have it on here that anybody can edit the document, and it just shows as the owner, but I don't see any way to I want to enable download, print, and copy. So you should be able to download it now. So once it's all done, you should be able to download it as a document and then submit it. Does that make sense? If this doesn't work, let me know. But it was just a little checkbox. I just saw it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Right.
Okay.
Good job, guys. John didn't show up. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look for, I think we'll probably just polish it off by email when, unless you guys want to meet again. Like if you look at the document and you don't like it, let me know. But
feel free to put a note on the document too. If anybody, you can add comments or in the chat section or write on the document, just like bold it and red it or something so that everybody can see that it's just a comment and not part of the document. That would be great.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Okay. And I'm good with
Saturday night.
Like, do you want to meet up on the document on Saturday night?
I think we ought
Sure.
to just check in and at least in the comments say, hey, I think this looks great, or hey, let's fix
Okay.
that. What do you think?
Some kind of
Yeah, or
feedback on the document.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So if you guys get me your ideas by Friday night, I'll get it edited Saturday and have it up Saturday night. Oh, hey, John.
Oh, wow. Bye.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
We're just about to be done. We're finished.
It's not easy. Sorry.
No problem. So we decided we were going to use the key issue as hiring policies. I don't know if you've had a chance to look over the Google documents. Are you okay with
I
that?
can't hear you, John.
Hello.
There you
Oh,
are.
there you are.
Did you-
Have you had a chance to look at the Google document about the doohickey problem?
Yes, I was. When I was in the car, I was just going through it on my phone.
Okay.
Actually, I had an assignment at the temple, and in fact, the time was scheduled that I had to be in the home before the meeting. But it actually was about 4 hours drive, but it has taken us almost like 7 hours to get back home.
Oh, you look exhausted.
Yeah,
Yes.
awful. Sorry.
I'm very, very sorry. I don't even know what to do now.
Well, I think at this point we're going to just work on the key policy that we're going to work on as the hiring policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have any ideas about developing a better hiring strategy, you can just edit the Google document, and then I'm going to put it together into its final form by Saturday night. And then if you guys want to look that over and, just let me know if you like it, if you think it represents us as a group, just let me know.
Then I'll
Sounds
I'll add my contribution to that.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, do we have anything else?
Who's going to be the leader next week?
I don't know. How do we know that?
We're
We decide?
all going to have to do it twice, so everybody gets a chance.
All right. So we just
John?
didn't.
Okay, then.
Oh,
Do you want me to lead the group next week?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, I can do it.
perfect.
Okay.
I can do it.
So say
I can do it.
at 3:30 Mountain Time. Is
Yes.
that right?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
But I believe you will create a room for me, and it's just like how we're going to get together. I believe you can do that for me, so I will join you at the Google Hangout.
That's a Tammy question.
Tammy is an expert.
You want me to set up the Google Hangout and then you can just lead it? I'll
Yes.
send out the link and make sure everybody's here, and then you can just lead the discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, I can do that. There are, John, I don't know if you noticed, there are some things you need to do as the leader that none of the rest's questions you have to answer and stuff. So just to be clear, I'm only going to do the link for the Google Hangout. You're going to take care of all that, right?
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. I'll send it Thursday around, I don't know, 3:15, 3:20.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks,
All right.
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Good night, everybody.
See y'all
Okay.
then.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.